we started now? Yes. Ready to go?
Nearly, Chairman.
Oh.
Okay, we are live, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, everybody, welcome to this virtual meeting of the Western Area Planning Committee. My name is Councillor David Beeman, and I am the chairman of this committee, and I'm supported this evening by officers Beth Aaron-Smith, Lewis Jones is supposed to be here, Chris French, Rachel Lawrence, John Patterson, Ruth Dovey, and Kimberly Sohn, and also my vice chair here, who's Councillor John Rubini. Members and officers, please use the hand raise function within Zoom to indicate that you wish to speak. Please keep yourself on mute when you are not speaking. Please can I also ask that any questions that get brief and to the point. We'll be timing speeches this evening, and an alarm will sound when you've been speaking for 4 minutes. Members are requested to avoid using the chat facility on Zoom to comment or discuss items on the agenda, as we must be seen to be open and transparent. The chat facility can be used to notify the chairman and officers of technical issues only. If any members of the meeting lose their connection temporarily, we will pause to allow them time to rejoin the meeting. If the webcast stream fails, then we will also have to adjourn until we're able to reset the connection. So we'll start the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence and substitutes. Kim?
I've had apology from absence from Councillor Peter Clark, and we have a substitute of Councillor Roger Blishin.
Right, thank you very much. The minutes of the last meeting, please note the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of February, which are published on the council website. Is everybody happy with those? You agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest received?
None received prior to the meeting, Chairman.
Okay. Questions by members of the public?
None received, Chair.
Questions from members?
None received, Chair.
Any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation in the last meeting? Beth or Chris? No? Beth, Chris?
There are no updates, Chairman. Thank you.
None, okay. And the next one, application planning commission. Please note the following. Oh, yes. Are there any applications decided on delegated powers which have previously been decided by the committee in consultation with the chairman and vice chairman and ward councillors? No. Don't think there are other. No. Chris? None.
Chairman, I think there was one that would have fallen under that category, Chairman.
Oh, what's that then?
I don't have the address to hand, but it was a householder extension.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Right. So we come on to the main meeting of the main meeting. Now, the first item is WA 2020-0558, land at the Old Mission Hall, Start Lane, Farnham, GU9-8LG, which is an outline planning application with all matters reserved for the erection of 24 apartments with underground parking following demolition of the existing bungalow of the Old Mission Hall, a revision of plan WA 2018-1879, as amplified by the Transport Assessment Travel Plan updated ecology report and amendment to proposed housing to include 7 of the 24 dwellings as affordable units. Now, before we start, and now the officer presentation, I have to say that I'm very unhappy as chairman to be receiving documents in relation to this, which are quite pertinent, at 4:54 this afternoon. And I mean, this is about the access arrangement. It's a report from the County Highways Authority. And quite frankly, I mean, well, words fail me. I'm a bit bewildered by all this. And so before we start on this, I would like to ask the committee whether they've also received this item, have they had a chance to read it, for example? And do we wish to defer this so that we can assess this very important factor of the application until the 26th of April? Members of the committee, have you got any views on this? Well,
I've not had a chance to read it, Chairman.
okay. You don't.
I haven't had a chance to read it, Chairman.
Right.
I'm trying to read it now.
All right, Councillor Rubini, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I haven't had a chance to read it. My point about deferment, though, have we got time? What I would hate to do is defer it and then find that we run out of time and get penalised and have to pass it. Can the officers advise us whether we have time to defer, please?
Yes, go on.
Good evening, Chairman. Perhaps it would help if I could
just say a few words about this update. Firstly, it would take us over the determination period for the application if we do defer the item tonight. That's not to say that you shouldn't do so if you feel unable to consider the information before you. But what I would say is the written note comes as a direct response to the site visit this Monday.
Yes.
To provide some additional clarification here. I am very conscious that you haven't had full time to read it. So what I do intend to do is to hand over to the County Highway Authority who are present at this meeting to talk through the highways note for you as part of the presentation.
Councillor Edmonds.
Thank you, Chair. I thought we had at least 3 working days to consider any documents. Otherwise, how can we make a reasoned conclusion without the information and time to look at it? It's a nonsense.
Well, I'm not very happy. Let's put it that way. Well, I'm taking the views of the rest of the committee. Do you want to take a vote on whether we want to defer this to the 26th of April? Yes, no?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to defer it.
Yeah, me as well.
Can we have a vote on that then, please?
Yeah.
Yes,
let me
please.
just pull up
Agreed.
the
Oh,
poll,
George, you want to
Chairman.
speak? George, yes?
I agree. It's too late. We should. I agree with Councillor Edmonds. We need reasonable time to consider anything like this. Thank you, Chair.
Particularly on this present issue, I think. Okay, so the alternate we defer to the 26th, with the 26th of April, which is Monday, of course. Could we vote on this, please?
Councillor?
Yeah.
Hello, this is John Boys, the applicant.
Sorry?
It's John Boys, the applicant. I don't know how I put my hand up.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I do apologise. Go on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can all hear you, I think.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Could I just make one statement that can you hear me? It's John Boys, the applicant.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Could I just make one statement? This was due to be determined in the 15th of July
Yes.
And it's costing significant amounts of money as this is extended month after month. So could we have that as a consideration?
Yeah, and what I'm saying to you, John, is this. It would definitely be heard on the 26th of April. If the members agree to that. So can we have a poll again? Right. I haven't got my poll. Where's my poll gone?
Do you want me to relaunch it, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Councillor Keane, 4.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. By my calculation, we've got one person missing.
Oh, who is the person? You got Councillor Keane, and Councillor Keane is separate, of course.
Oh no, we're there. Thank you.
Okay.
So I can confirm that that's 9 for deferment, 3 against, and no abstentions.
Okay.
So the deferred is carried.
Until the 26th of April. Thank you very much. Right. Move on. Right, the next one is also public speaking. In fact, is at WA 2021-0133, the land at the garages 1 to 5, Turners Mead, Chiddingfold, an application under Regulation 3 for the erection of 2 dwellings with new access and parking following demolition of the existing garages, as amended by plans received on the 26th of February. Right. We have public speakers on this, and we'll start with Pippa Piper, I think is the one for us to speak. Oh, no, presentation by the officer, which is Gemma, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening to you members. Right, so the site is located to the southwest of Turners Mead, to the rear of an existing block of masonettes. The site currently contains a block of 5 garages, flat roof, and several ancillary outbuildings associated with number 20 Turners Mead. The site is accessed by a narrow access just here that runs along the southeast boundary of the site. To the south of the site lies farmland with residential properties around the remaining boundaries. The proposal involves the demolition of the existing garages and the parking area and the erection of 2 two-bedroom affordable residential units with associated vehicle access from the main highway, vehicle parking and landscaping. The proposal also involves the provisions of 6 parking spaces to the front to accommodate vehicles displaced at the rear by the proposal. To give you an idea of what the proposed development would look like, the proposed dwellings would be 1.5 stories in height. This is a scale proposed due to reduce the uplift of the built form in this greenbelt location. Looking at the side elevations, the design features are barn-hipped roofs with first floor timber cladding, which reflects some details in the locale. The internal living accommodation would exceed the technical housing standards, and the proposed development would provide appropriate external private amenity space for future residents. And all internal accommodation would be served by unrestricted windows, allowing for light and air to circulate the rooms. Just moving to some photographs now. This photograph shows the access from the site from Turners Mead between 19 Turners Mead and the Masonette. So that's the access there. This photograph shows the entrance to the parking area. And this photo looks back towards the access from Turners Mead. The next few photos show the existing parking area. Just to advise, the RAC van was on call at the time because it was on call to my vehicle, which had a puncture on site. So here's the existing car park looking towards 19 Turners Mead. And this is the existing car park again, looking. Here is an idea of what the existing garages look like. This photo shows the area proposed for 6 new parking spaces to serve Turners Mead. So moving on to the main matters for consideration, members are being asked to exercise their judgment on the impact on the Greenbelt, giving consideration to the exemption for new development in the Greenbelt criteria set out in the MPPF, which considers previously development land and development that contributes to meeting an identified affordable housing need being appropriate, where it can be demonstrated that it would not cause substantial harm to the openness of the Greenbelt. Moving to the impact on the protected landscape, members are being asked to give consideration to the site being located in a rural settlement within the AONB and therefore within a residential context. Furthermore, the Surrey Hills Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty Officer is satisfied that the proposals would not affect the wider AONB landscape. Looking at highways implication, distribution of vehicle parking spaces, by acknowledging that the proposal will result in the loss of the 5 garages and 8 vehicle parking spaces from the site, but also having regard to the provision of the 6 off-street vehicle parking spaces and the parking survey accompanying the application, which concludes that although the proposal would displace parking from the site, this could be accommodated through the additional parking spaces proposed and through existing on-street parking opportunities. The County Highways Authority have reviewed this document and they raise no objection to the proposal on highway safety or operation grounds. Looking at the design and impact on visual amenity, in acknowledging that whilst the proposed new residential units would not fully accord to the prevailing 2-storey scale of the surrounding built form as a result of conforming to those greenbelt constraints, that they would not be significantly out of keeping with the surrounding character, particularly given that elements of the design have been influenced by the surrounding built form. Looking to the standard of accommodation, noting that the proposed units exceed the technical housing standards and would be well served by windows. Moving on to the impact on residential amenity, noting the distances between the proposed and existing built form and the orientation of proposed windows, which would be away from neighbouring properties in order to preserve the amenity. Looking at the tree impact, acknowledging that the proposal is likely to result in the loss of an unprotected tree, which has limited visual contribution to the street scene as a result of its location to the rear, or having also having a limited impact on the AONB, and that this loss has been balanced against the provision of the two affordable units towards the council's housing stock in a sustainable location. The effect on the SPA, noting that the proposal, although increasing residents permanently on the site, would not result in an adverse effect on the integrity of the Wilden Heaths. And finally, biodiversity, giving consideration to the submission of the report, which has been reviewed by Surrey Wildlife Trust, who raised no objection on the proposal, subject to conditions as per the update sheet, which members will have in front of them. As well as the contents of the update sheet, officers would like to provide members with a verbal update. A further correspondence from a third party has been received, raising matters that could be considered to be new material considerations. Concern has been raised against the validity of the parking survey, given that the survey itself was carried out pre-COVID. During the officer site visit carried out recently, it was noted that the number of vehicles parked within the site seemed to accord with a number averaged within the parking survey. Furthermore, the author of the parking survey has clarified that the parking survey is at point in time, and for that reason, inspections are undertaken at different times of the day, with the worst time being used as a baseline for comparison. The author of the parking survey also considered that a change in car ownership over an 18 to 24-month period is unlikely to have been significant, particularly in light of the economic constraints associated with the current situations. The author of the survey is also of the opinion that to rerun the survey is unlikely to be an unnecessary exercise, particularly in light of the provisions of the 6 parking spaces as per part of this application. With respect to access and parking for 19 Turners Mead during and post-completion construction, the County Highways Officer is satisfied that the vehicle parking spaces provided meet the dimensional requirements of a standard parking bay, and that the occupants of 19 Turners Mead will still be able to access the parking area. As within any residential context, parking outside of a standard space that leads to an obstruction is considered to be a civil matter. In the event that permission is granted, condition 5 would secure a construction transport plan that would require details of parking for site personnel and material storage to be secured prior to the development commencing on site, which would address concerns regarding access during the construction phase. Finally, officers would like to make 2 points of clarification within the agenda. On page 60 of the agenda, the final paragraph makes reference to the provision of 2 dedicated vehicles parking spaces to serve 20 Turners Mead, following the loss of their dedicated garage parking as a result of this application. This provision was originally proposed to the rear of 20 Turners Mead within the application site. However, following further discussions with the occupants of 20 Turners Mead, they had a preference for this parking to be provided to the front of their site, which is outside of this application. The council will be carrying out this parking provision separately. Secondly, on page 67 of the agenda, at the penultimate paragraph of the conclusion, reference is made to the loss of a tree from the site. To clarify, the tree is outside of the site. The officer's recommendation remains as set out on pages 58 of the agenda, that permission be granted, subject to the conditions set out on pages 58 to 63 of the agenda, and the informatives set out on pages 63 to 66 of the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
We're public speaking on this item, and the first speaker is Simon Piper, who wishes to object to the scheme. Simon, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. So firstly, I'd just like to state that we're not objecting to the principle of developing on this site, but we do feel that there are significant unaddressed concerns that need to be looked at before any decision is taken. I've condensed these into 3 core areas. So the first of which is access during the build. We note that provision has been given to alternative parking spaces for the cars that currently park in the proposed development area. But we have concerns about all the residents that actually live in the 10+ households at the end of the cul-de-sac and ongoing provision during the build. In particular, the access when these new parking spaces are being built out front. And specifically for ourselves at 19 Turners Mead, there needs to be considerable groundwork when it comes to the access road and also the provision of the visitor parking spaces. So there has been no consideration for our access to our parking spaces during the build there, and additionally we have major concerns around contractors and tradespeople. Does the committee think it's feasible that those people will be asked to park up at the village green and then walk down with all their tools day in, day out? How are we policing that? The second key point I'd like to raise is around easy parking access for 19 Turners Mead. I disagree with the statement that the provision is there. It was actually built, if you look in the diagrams, for a single vehicle parking in our spaces. We have 2 cars in our household. It would be at least a 5-point turn, particularly for the northernmost parking space, for us to get access to our drive as the plans stand. I also have very serious concerns around the turning area that's proposed. If a car drives up the access road, I tried it yesterday, it was a 7-point turn for me, and I think that it will be very likely that cars will have to reverse back out of that access road as it currently stands. There are no confirmed measurements, so I can't verify it exactly, but I would like to see those measurements. Similarly, I disagree that the visitor parking is considered a civil matter. These potential plans create the problem, and I think it's unreasonable of the council to wash its hands of the potential consequences. Now, the third point I'd like to make is around the parking stress survey and the inaccuracies there. So, as you rightly pointed out, it was submitted in October 2020, but it was actually carried out between Jan and Feb 2019, pre-pandemic. And there have been a huge amount of change in circumstances, not least for me as well. There are more of us working at home. And I would also like to state that I have concerns over the timings of the survey as well. Many of them fell during school run and pickup times, and also while people were commuting to and from their work. So I'd like to invite the councillors to come and see the true traffic loads at the end of Turners Mead as it currently stands, and I think it would be disingenuous to proceed with this application before that has been reassessed. So in summary, I'd just like to say that I'd like to ask the question about whether, if this were a private development, whether you would grant permission as it currently stands with the loss of a mature oak tree and with significant access concerns for multiple residents, and not least the issues around parking for ourselves and the inaccuracies of the survey.
Okay, Simon, thank you very much. Right, we have Louisa Blundell, who wishes to speak in support of the scheme. Louisa.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this planning application. The proposed development of 2 new homes at Turners Mead supports the delivery of much needed affordable housing for rent for those families in housing need who could not otherwise afford to live in Chiddingfold. The homes proposed for this site, together with those 24 homes on the other 4 sites in Chiddingfold, which we've already obtained and had granted consent, will continue to contribute to the housing requirement of Chiddingfold as set out in the local plan and also in the emerging Chiddingfold neighbourhood plan. Following the declaration of the climate change emergency in September 2020, and as set out in the Council's Carbon Neutrality Action Plan, the homes delivered will be net zero carbon homes, highly energy efficient and sustainable, which will be better for the environment and will lead to reduced fuel bills for those who live in them. We will also protect and enhance the biodiversity through the installation of swift and bird boxes and support the hedgehog population and provide native species parking to further support disruption during the construction. We will work closely with the community and residents and our contractor to minimise these and ensure compliance with the Construction Transport Management Plan. Our Waverley Development Officer and the Resident Liaison Officer for the appointed contractor will be the points of contact so that any we have delivered, we will also notify the immediate community with details of planned of the new affordable, healthy rented homes was considered to outweigh this loss.
Of the site. You will perhaps come to your own decisions. The parish council have no objections for the application, and we had no objections for all the other garage sites in Chiddingfold, and there are quite a few of them. There have been no objections on those sites. The housing department have worked very hard with the planners, and therefore they will keep their eyes, as it's something that Waverley own and the Waverley Housing Department are in charge of, and the planners. It is absolutely vital that they do work together, because that is one of the unique opportunities that we have. They will keep their eyes on the construction vehicles, the builders, and they will, as they will on all the other garage sites. The loss of the tree is unfortunate, but it isn't seen from the front at all. It's only seen from the rear. And I do think that two council houses, not just affordable houses, these are council houses, is in
our housing department for bringing forward such an exceptional plan. Thank you.
You're muted. Still muted. Still muted.
Sorry, I disappeared from my own screen. I couldn't find myself. I beg your
I
pardon.
know the feeling.
Yes, one understands obviously the nature of local residents' concerns during the construction period like this, but I think I'm right in saying from a technical point of view that construction traffic is not a material planning consideration when considering an application, but we do need to condition any consent we might be minded to give to mitigate the effects of construction traffic, and I note that is what is proposed. As with so many applications, there are policy compromises to be made here, but I think on balance that this is a desirable development, both from the point of view of local appearance and amenity, and also from the point of view of providing the much needed council housing that we've already heard discussed. The previous speaker, Mr. Piper, I think his name was, can take some comfort in the fact that Waverley Borough Council, as a landowner and the body bringing about the construction of this scheme, if given consent, is a very careful, diligent, thoughtful, considerate owner of land, which is not always the case when it comes to the private sector. So I think he could take some comfort from the fact that it's going to be carried out by a reputable public body to a decent standard with proper liaison with local folk from the beginning. And I'd also, just in ending, like to congratulate the architects employed by Waverley Borough Council once again for appearing to get quite a quart in a pint pot. They are the masters of density as far as I'm concerned. I think any more would be too much, but this is just about fine. So it's something I shall support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor S.
I really fully support the provision of affordable housing and also the fact that Waverley are taking extra special efforts to meet net zero carbon targets, which is very, very good. However, I would just, because I'm not quite to residents parking, the existing residents parking, never mind the parking for the new houses, but the existing residents parking. Could the officer clarify whether there is net gain or net loss? And also, while I'm speaking, I'd just like to say that I'm very disappointed that there's no proposal for the replanting of an oak tree. Perhaps there's somewhere that Waverley could put an oak tree in to compensate for the loss of this one. I could be clarified, please. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Very much. Do you want to clarify that now, Gemma?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you very much, and thank you for your question, Councillor. So the proposal would result in the loss of all the 8 parking, or displacement of the parking spaces. 6 of those would be displaced into the parking spaces being proposed, and another 2 would be likely displaced onto the on-road parking. So potentially as well, there could be parking within the garages, although the parking stress survey does suggest would be potentially a net loss of 2 parking spaces. With respect to the regrettable loss of the oak tree is because the potential impact it could have on those dwellings in terms of shading, in terms of future pressures for its removal. The majority of the remainder of the site also doesn't seem large enough to be able to accommodate a tree in the future, whilst it might accommodate a sort of a younger tree as it matures. You know, we could find ourselves in the same position that we are now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Councillor Edmonds.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm trying to work out, is access to this construction via a single track lane? I mean, to me, I can't understand how people explain, because it looks to me as if only one car or one vehicle can pass.
Track lane, just, you know, access to the garage. There is only one car that can go in and one car that can go out at a time.
Sustainable development. We have to provide well-designed, safe construction. And to me, this site doesn't look safe. So under those circumstances, under paragraph 8 of the planning policy, I would object to it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Oh, anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Coburn.
No, I just wanted to say that the access is no sort of put it in a strained area when it comes to the built form. But I really do think that we have to look at the bigger picture here. We had a very nice application, a similar one. And I really think that what we have to do as an authority is maximise every single opportunity we have. We have some land, we have resources, we could just do it overnight, but we have to use what we have to use it sensibly, and we have at some point to get up to speed with our number of affordable homes. So I think this, the slightly difficult access, I really do think that what we're going to end up with on here.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would fully support this application. I support all the others that have been built in Chiddingfold. Like others have said before me, I think our architects and builders do a wonderful job in putting these places in. It is definitely needed, these social housing. We haven't got enough of it and we need it. One point I would ask though is that we were talking about the oak tree that's coming down. I would like to see it. However, under this emergency climate and all the rest of it, I would like to see a tree that's taken down to be placed somewhere else. I don't actually care where it is, as long as it's got space to grow. So perhaps a site could be identified somewhere where we could replace this tree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Short.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just on this access, at the moment there are what, 8 cars that go in and out on the current situation to the garage and the parking area. Therefore, with 2 houses there, I can't really see this being a bigger problem than there is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Martin.
Okay, looking at the block plan, number 5 block plan, we're having a new access road in anyway. So are you closing off the existing access road, which is only the narrow one? So looking at this, you've got a new access road, which is much wider. It's between the flats and number 20. So I can't see why we're complaining about access.
Councillor Murleys.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I agree with Councillor Hess and Councillor Rubini that some kind of planting of a tree should be taken into account. It aligns with our core strategy for pollution and biodiversity, and that should not be ignored. It doesn't have to be on that site, it should be somewhere else. My other concern is that Mr. Piper has told us very clearly that he has tried to do 7-point turns, trying to get in and out of this area, and nobody has addressed this. I'm for this development on every level, but could somebody try and answer his comments about that? I think that would have to be an officer. Thank you.
And it's an officer next, Chris French.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to address the issue of replacing the tree, if that's okay. I've given some parts of the application. I don't think it's specific enough in terms of where it would go, and it's also wouldn't be replaced on the site. But what we could do is, if members are minded to, we could put an informative on encouraging encouraging the applicant to provide a tree elsewhere on other land that they own nearby, but it wouldn't be something that we could do as a condition and insist on. But we could, I think it could be an informative to encourage. Is my my thoughts on that. Thank you, Chairman.
We spend a lot of time on trees here. Councillor Hess.
Well, we should. Important, and I'm really amused. We could ask the applicant. Guess who the applicant is? It's Waverley Borough Council. You know, that's a laugh. Look, we're considering a project for ourselves, and surely we could ask for a tree of a similar species to be provided to Chiddingfold Parish Council to plant in a nice spot where they think appropriate. I mean, that's not a big ask. So, you know, perhaps that could be just considered again.
I think Chris just said that by an informative. Anyway, last one. Councillor Edmonds, anything else to add?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Hess has made my point. Waverley Borough Council are the applicant. We're a judge in our own cause. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think everyone's had the chance to speak now. Yeah, okay. Councillor James, do you want another 4 minutes to sum up?
No, thank you, Chairman. I just need a few. I will liaise with the parish council. My garden is too small to plant a tree. I would have been happy, but there are plenty of landowners, acres of green land in the green belt, and I'm sure somebody will be very happy to plant an oak tree. Further down the line, we will deal with it. But an informative is just right to Waverley. I'm a Waverley councillor. The parish council will be aware, and we will look at a landowner and ask them if they will put an oak tree. Thank you very much, Emma. And I
was waving at me.
I hope members will support the application. Thank you, Chairman.
Gemma was waving at me. Do you want to speak, Gemma, or not?
James, may I just thank Councillor Morillas for raising a very valid point around the 7-point turn. I know there was no response, so I would love for there to be a response, please.
Okay, Mr. Piper, you've had your 4 minutes, but I mean, Gemma was waving around. I mean, I'm sure she's going to speak on this. Yeah, Gemma, you want to sum up?
Yeah, so I was.
You're muted.
Beg your pardon. Thank you. Sorry, I was about to address Councillor Miralles' question. The application came with a turning diagram, which demonstrates to the satisfaction of the county council that a vehicle can actually do a 5-point turn within the site and exit the site in a safe manner. So on the basis of the fact that the county council have agreed that diagram and that can be carried out, officers are looking to, it would be unreasonable for officers to refuse that on the basis of the turning area available.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, I think everyone's on the say. Right, we come to the recommendation, which is revised. The subject to conditions 1 to 12 are set out on pages 67 to 71 of the agenda. Informatives 1 to 13 are set out on pages 71 to 74 of the agenda. And additional informatives now 14 and 15 and 16. 14 and 15 are set out on the update paper, and 16 being the tree. The permission be granted. Can we vote on that, please?
Could I just make a very quick point of order, Mr. Chairman?
Mm-hmm.
Which is that my internet, I think this is great, but my internet connection failed for about 5 minutes during that period.
Oh dear.
So I won't be able to vote. So the arithmetic of the polling process won't add up.
Oh dear. Sorry.
I won't, cast a vote, but it won't add up, and that's the reason why. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Simon.
you, Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor D, I should say.
Councillor Keane for.
Thank you.
And the result?
Okay, thank you. That's 9-4 for the application to be granted, 3 against and no abstentions.
Thank you very much. So the application is granted. Thank you very much. Right, move on to the final item of the night, which is an application not for public speaking, which is WA 2019-1850, the land at Chasemore, Portsmouth Road, Hindhead, an application on section 73 to vary condition 1 of WA 2017-1044, approved plans to allow changes to the side areas and elevations. Ruth to present. Thank you.
Sorry, got to unmute. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So this is an application under section 73 to vary condition 1 of planning application reference number WA 2017-1044, which allows changes to the size, layout and elevations of units on the site and the removal of the affordable housing provision. So if I take you to the location plan. So effectively, the site is a square parcel of land that's located on the northwestern side of the old Portsmouth Road. And you have the A3 running parallel to the old Portsmouth Road along here. Just to recap that this application is a revision to a previous application that was approved for 10 units. So the number of units is remaining the same. And we're not revisiting the principle of the proposal. We're really just looking at the changes and whether they are acceptable. So this provides you with a bit more context. So you can see the square parcel of land, which is effectively pasture, located here. The A3 is here, and you have got Greyshot settlement up towards here. And the Hindhead punch bowl just further on to the northeast. The site is located in the AONB and the AGLV. So here are some photos of the site. So this is a photo going along the old Portsmouth Road, looking from the southwest towards the site. And this is from the Portsmouth Road looking in the opposite direction. These are photos from within the site, so you can see that it's sort of flat pasture land, effectively with screening, various bits of screening along the boundaries. And again, these are more views from within the site that just give you an idea of sort of the flat pasture land that it is. So as I said, this is a section 73 application. So this is this slide shows you the comparative block plans between the existing and proposed. So effectively, the layout is very similar to what has already been agreed. They're effectively amendments to the design of the units. They're broadly similar in the design characteristics as previously approved, but just sort of general tweaks. You'll also see that on the approved plan, there's a lot of open, effectively sort of communal open space that doesn't sit within the garden area of the dwellings. And this wraps round to this part of the site as well. And you'll see that on the proposed block plan, the gardens would actually extend towards this boundary here. There's also changes to the housing mix, which I will just run through. So as approved, there were 3 affordable housing units proposed, and there would be 1 2-bed unit and 2 1-bed units. And there would have been 2 2-bedroom units, 3 3-bedroom units, and 2 4+ bedroom units. This scheme, which is for 100% affordable housing, would have 2 1-bedroom units, 1 2-bedroom unit, 3 3-bedroom units, and 4 4-bedroom units. So obviously we lose the proposal is to lose the affordable housing, but in terms of housing mix, there's still quite a good spread across the various sizes. I will come on to the matter of the affordable housing further on in the presentation. There is also it was also previously proposed that the leap and lap would be in the centre of the site, and it's now proposed that the leap and lap are separated out. So the leap would now be located here, and the lap remaining in the centre of the site. So in terms of the affordable housing, this has been taken out of the proposal because it's now considered not to be viable. At the time of the previous application, we did have an affordable housing consultant on board who reviewed the application in detail. The applicants had actually submitted a viability report that said that the development wasn't viable for affordable housing. That affordable housing consultant reviewed that viability assessment and concluded that it was, and it was for those reasons that 3 affordable housing units were included in the approved scheme. And for matters that I'll come on to shortly, I'll explain why it is thought that the proposal is no longer viable for affordable housing. So these are just a sort of a range of elevations of the various dwellings. So these are, top one is the front and rear elevation of plots 1 and 2, and they are 3-bedroom dwellings. Plots 3 and 4 at the bottom of the image, that's a pair of 1-bedroom dwellings. Plot 5 is a 2-bedroom detached dwelling. And then we move to plot 10, which is one of the biggest houses on the site, which is a 5-bedroom dwelling. So that gives you an indication of the design of the houses. And there's actually no significant increase in height of the proposed dwellings over the approved dwellings. I think the next slide is a comparative. So this is a comparative street scene. So this really gives an indication that the view of the proposal from the street is very similar between both development schemes. Now, I've touched on the fact that no affordable housing is now being proposed, and the main reason for this is because some sewage infrastructure that needs to be provided as part of the proposed development. So the slide that I've got up here shows a pipe run from the site to the mains drainage, and that is a requirement of the development, that they will have to have a 640-metre sewer to connect from the site to the general pumping station, and the cost of that is £463,000. In addition to that infrastructure, which is more complicated than the applicant anticipated than at the time of the previous application, build costs since the last viability assessment was carried out have increased by 15%. So we have had the same viability consultant who looked at the original application, who said it was viable for the 3 affordable housing units, to now relook at it in light of the need for this extensive sewer provision and in light of increased build costs. And he has concluded that the site isn't viable for affordable housing as a result of this or any commuted payments. Now, I have explored options as to whether there are any alternatives that that could be undertaken in relation to the sewage on the site, but Thames Water have confirmed that this is the only solution for the sewage treatment, and Building Control have also confirmed that, and that is to do with we have considered the option of individual sewage treatment plants, but most of the plots aren't large enough for that, and also there has been consideration of a package treatment plant, but building regs wouldn't allow for this. So effectively, given all these factors, and given that we have a viability report that our viability consultant agrees shows that the affordable housing on the site is not viable, we're of the view that the proposal accords with policy AHN1 relating to affordable housing, which allows you to, whilst requiring affordable housing, it also does indicate that if you can demonstrate it's not viable, then we can't insist upon it. And there was an update sheet that was circulated that just reflected that fact, because there was a hanging sentence that was left in the report in relation to that. So in terms of affordable housing, officers are of view that the proposed development is acceptable. And so this is just the sheet that sets out the key mass for consideration. So I've sort of touched upon various aspects of this in my presentation already, but effectively the design is very similar to what we've previously seen, and we think that's acceptable. The housing mix provides a relatively broad range for a site that provides 10 units, and also reflects the fact that the site's in the OMB where you want relatively low density. The impact on residential amenity is considered acceptable. There are implications in terms of the impact on the SPA, because the application site is just outside the 400-metre zone from the Wilden Heath SPA at the Punch Bowl. Some mitigation has been proposed for this in the form of a financial contribution towards the management of Tyndall's Wood, which is an alternative area of space in proximity to the site, and that is the same mitigation that was proposed previously. It's just the level of contribution has been upped as a result of the change to the housing mix. And for the reasons that I've given, we consider that the affordable housing and the loss of it, whilst regrettable, is acceptable. So for those reasons, officers are recommending approval of the application in line with the conditions set out within the officer's report. I do just have one condition to add to those listed in the report, which I'll read out to you, and it is as follows. It is prior to commencement of development, above ground details of the pumping station and a scheme for its management and maintenance shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the council. The development shall be carried out in accordance with the details approved. Reason, in order to ensure a satisfactory external appearance and that appropriate foul water infrastructure is in place in accordance with policy TD1 and ICS1 of the Local Plan Part 1 2018 and policies D1 and D4 of the Local Plan 2002. Now, the need for that condition is because there will be a need for a pumping station on site to pump the foul water into the sewage pipe effectively. But officers are recommending approval of the application in accordance with the recommendation in the officer's report and with that additional condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Right. Councillor Rubini, I think, was the first to speak, because you've got it to committee, didn't you, Councillor Rubini?
Yes, I called this in. I get very angry, as many other councillors do, when we continually see these affordable housing sites stopped, i.e. the government put down 30 to 40%, we put 30 to 40%, we accept a planning application for that, and then various applications come in with viability studies that say we can't afford it. On this particular one, the thing that annoys me most of all is that they now say that they've got to run a 614-metre sewer along the Portsmouth Road, and it's going to cost a lot of money. Can anybody explain to me that when they put the original application in, they had no idea that they had to do this? Surely there's negligence. If they plan a site, surely they have to look at everything for costing. Surely it's not right that they ignore that cost until they get to this stage to say, oh, we can't afford it, we've got to spend more money than we thought. Well, that's not our fault, surely. We have given planning permission, including the affordable. And I'm sorry, I'm totally against allowing this application to go through for a reduction in affordable. The houses are fine, I don't mind the site, nothing else, yeah, wonderful. It's the affordable part of it that I do not understand why they cannot have foreseen this cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, I had exactly the same question, thank you, Chair, as Councillor Rubini in respect of the sewer. Why didn't they know this when they originally came up with the plans and reviewed the site? And in total agreement with Councillor Rubini that, it seems that time and time again, or fairly frequently, we get these applications that come through, and then further down the line, we can't afford it anymore, and we need to take the affordable housing out. And it's always the affordable housing which is the thing that, surprise, surprise, they need to remove. So it just seems a bit fishy to me, and I couldn't support it with the removal of the affordable housing, I'm afraid.
Councillor Isherwood.
Thank you, Chairman. It is most regrettable that the affordable housing is taken out, but you can see the problems that have arisen with the sewer of 640 metres. I do worry that we are looking at 10 houses that have been in the planning system for, well, since 2019. Regrettable that they've had to reduce the offering of affordable homes. Understand that. Hindhead's done fairly well on affordable homes on the other applications that we've had, but one comment I'd make, if you look at that site, we've got a leap and a lap for 10 houses. Those houses have 10 large gardens. Why on earth do we need leaps and laps other than to comply with certain regulations? They will become derelict, they will become waste areas, there'll be dog traps, amongst other things, and that's the last thing you want with young children around, isn't it? So I do support the system. I thank the officer for a very full and clear explanation of why the affordable homes no longer are available. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Deere.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have an office, we have an independent consultant's report in front of us that says very clearly that their view is that the affordable housing can be deleted. We may not like that, but I think to refuse it in the face of that would expose us to a very tricky appeal application. But I am in full agreement with what other councillors have said about the importance and desirability of affordable housing. What I would like to do, just thinking about this in practical terms, is not to decide on this tonight. What I would like to do on a site of about 4.5 acres, where there are only 10 houses, I would like to explore the possibility of putting another couple of houses on the site. It's amply big enough for that. That would go a long way to mitigating the extra costs that the developer has claimed will be incurred, and that will allow the retention of the affordable houses that we all so greatly want. If that doesn't work, another suggestion would be to install, I know it's been touched on by Ruth, the case officer, but I cannot believe on a site of that size and where there is that much open space that Clargesters could not be used to solve the drainage problem in another way. So, as I say, exploring a couple of extra units would, to my mind, subject to all else being equal, allow the financial retention of the affordable housing. If that's not a possibility, I really don't see why there can't be an individual drainage solution to this, because I'm sure an awful lot of the houses up there work on exactly that basis at the moment. So, subject to any further comments, I would suggest that those discussions should be held before we expose ourselves to making a decision that, to my mind, could be very easily challenged and appealed. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I agree with previous speakers. I mean, I think this is appalling that the first thing that happens when a developer has failed to do their due diligence properly at the beginning, oh dear, yes, the affordable houses go. So my suggestion, I mean, we've heard from Ruth the increased costs of development and the increase of this 645,000. But nobody has mentioned, if this was given permission in 2019, the dramatic increase in house prices around here in this area. I mean, they've gone up by probably at least 20% since this was originally developed. So you can't just say, well, the costs have gone up without taking into account the additional revenue that the developer will get from selling these new houses probably in a year or two's time. So again, I'm sure that Councillor Deere's suggestion should be looked into. I don't know anything about drainage, but I'm sure that's a very practical suggestion if he's done that. So I'm quite happy for it to be deferred while we look into Councillor Deer's suggestions. But also, I think we should look into the extra revenue that the developer will get from selling houses at this time or in a year or so's time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Chairman. I just think we're once again between a rock and a hard place here. And there isn't a councillor on this Zoom meeting that doesn't regret the loss of any affordable homes, because we all know there's a desperate need. But we've also got the officer and her report, which was thorough and which told us that there is a report that the same financial consultant has looked at, and he has agreed with the applicant. So it's a very tricky situation. What is wrong is the situation that the legislation, if you like, that we have to make our decisions within. But, you know, the applicant has done everything the law allows him to do. And I very much regret the loss. But I thought we had to look at what we've got in front of us. I mean, I thought that was what we had to do as a planning committee. We've got the plans in front of us. We've had the report from the officer. Now we make a decision on it. And I was certainly with Councillor Isherwood, as he knows, on leaps and laps. I think it is so ridiculous when I just wish they could tear up the legislation and just make everybody have a green space, a garden, because I just think that's your basic need, certainly if it's a family home, just to stick the kiddies out there while you do something else. I think leaps and laps on a plot like this are a complete and utter waste of space. But I don't know that we have much choice in this matter. We can regret it, we can defer it, but I think ultimately the facts are there and the facts back the applicant, not us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mr. Chris Finch.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just clarify a few points from the discussions that we've just heard. In terms of us having to determine the application that's in front of us, I think that is correct. I understand Councillor Deer's point about increasing the number of units, but this is a application under Section 73, so we are bound to determine the number of units in the same. That would have to be of the same number as were originally put forward. The other thing is that increasing the number of units on the site, this is it could have an impact on other things. So in terms of the AONB and like, but I think also the application is submitted in a way that we would have to consider it on that basis because of it being a Section 73 application, so a variation of what was originally approved in terms of the number. So I've heard that obviously the loss is regrettable in terms of the affordable housing, but it has been through. We have had an independent review of the viability information, and I would have some real concerns in terms of reasonableness if we were to not take that independent review into account. I think it is notable that the independent review did take place on the application originally as well, and at that point the same person concluded it was viable, however has taken into account this additional information through the 73 and has come to the conclusion that it wouldn't be viable. So I think I'm confident that the approach that has been taken is robust and the policy allows for that loss. So I would have concerns about how we would defend a refusal at appeal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I agree with between a rock and a hard place. But if you're a developer, you take the risk that development will not make money. It is not for us and residents to pick up the bill if he doesn't come up with a profit the developer wants or requires. I get really angry with this. We need affordable housing, and then to go back on your application and find out that you haven't looked at it properly and you find out you have to 640 metres of sewage system. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, Councillor Edmonds, you haven't spoken yet, have you? Councillor Edmonds.
Thank you very much, Chair. To me, this seems odd because it's the first case I've ever come across of underdevelopment. It's rather odd that we have a site where affordable homes could be built, yet we don't seem to be doing anything about it. How can I put it? It really needs to probably be changed at national level, but to underdevelop land is, is negligent. However, I can't do anything about it. I just wanted to make the observation. Thank you.
Yeah, Catherine, I think you're very careful what words you use when speaking, but there we are. Right, the other people, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, just a quick question, actually, for Chris French or one of the officers. That when the independent review was undertaken, when they discovered that this 640 metre sewage pipe, they weren't aware of that somehow, that they needed that before. When the independent review was taken, did they look at any other solutions and consider them seriously, apart from going straight to removing the affordable housing on the site? And if so, what other solutions did they look at?
Do you want to answer that now, Chris, or not? I'll wait till those people. Ruth?
Thank you, Chairman. Ruth is...
Ruth, do you want to answer that now?
Yeah, I think I touched upon in my presentation that there has been consideration of whether individual sewage treatment plants could be provided within each dwelling. And that was discounted on the basis that the areas of the dwellings, the curtilage of the dwellings weren't of sufficient size, and a package treatment plant was also considered, but that was discounted because it wouldn't be allowed by building regs. So,
right.
and because
sorry, I think you misunderstand my question. Probably, I'm not interested really in, or I wasn't looking for whether there were other alternative sewage solutions. What I was looking at is, or wanted to understand was, when they discovered this, there was only one solution for the sewage. Did they think about any other housing mix on the site rather than just taking away the affordable housing, if that makes sense?
So they have amended, part of the rationale for amending the housing mix is to make the development more viable. I suppose within what they have to be careful about is in considering other aspects of things, you may potentially fall foul of other planning policies. So I suppose if they were proposing 10 4 or 5 bed units on the site, then we may say that's not an appropriate housing mix because it's not providing a sort of a full range of unit sizes, and so therefore wouldn't accord with one of our policies in the local plan. And the other point I would just like to pick up on is about lots of people talking about the site being undeveloped. Now, there is more history to this site than is in the officer's report, and maybe with hindsight, I should have put it in, but I put in the relevant history, which was the original application that we are now revisiting. There is previous history before that where we refused an application for a 16-unit scheme. And a lot of the rationale for that was on the basis that it was in the AONB. So it is actually a very sensitive area to develop. And that is actually why you have a lot of the site at the front that isn't developed, for the precise reason that there are sensitivities around the visual impact on the AONB. So although to some people it looks like the site's undeveloped and it could take more units, there are very specific reasons why probably the applicant hasn't come back and suggested an increase in the number of units given the history.
And do we know, sorry, one last question, do we know what they would consider the sort of profit margin to be, if you like, or how viable the site is?
I just need to check the viability report, but I can come back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, right. We've got another people who want to speak again, but I mean, we must wrap this up because this is a Section 73 application. I don't think we can defer it at all, and we've got to make a decision on this. But Councillor Sherwood.
Thanks for letting me come back, Chairman. Just adding to what Ruth said there on the planning history, if you go back a little further, 2015, there's an application for 44 dwellings on that site that was refused. The 2017 application was for 16 dwellings, that was refused. The later one in 2017 for 10 dwellings gained full planning permission. Thank you
very much for that clarification. Councillor Rubini, or Councillor Keane, I think it is.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chairman. I can fully understand the thoughts on both sides from the councillors, and certainly when Councillor Coburn said it is a rock and a hard place that we're in, and we don't want to go to appeal and lose it. But the thing that really angers me is with these developers that they look at a site, you know, they see that they can make a nice amount of money from it. They put in a planning application. Well, why haven't they done the groundwork to find out exactly what they're going to have to do to make this development work? And it, time after time, it's always the affordable housing that is thrown out because, oh dear, we can't make enough money. And I think that is really, really bad, because if they can't put in an application where they've done all the groundwork and sorted out what costs they have, it is not our problem, it is their problem. And they will make money out of this site because, as has been said, house prices are rising rapidly and they will be well in profit. Thank you.
Right, and Councillor Deere, do you want to come back?
Yeah, just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I mean, my suggestion, I mean, you know, as far as I see this situation as a matter of reason, as a matter of fact, we're confronted with an independent analysis of the figures that, I won't say dictates, but specifies a very clear course of action that we would be very difficult to avoid. My suggestion of examining other possibilities was a way of trying to avoid making that decision without exploring as fully as we possibly could the alternatives. It may be that an applicant would welcome a discussion along the lines that I have suggested. It may, you know, there may be enough in it for him to want to do what I suggested, but at the same time allows us to retain the affordable housing. To my mind, it's a question of how much we want to retain this affordable housing. The obvious situation we're faced with here is with very little choice but to say yes. We have an independent assessment. I'm trying to put that to one side at the moment to try and think around solutions that we might be able to provide to retain that affordable housing. But if that's not technically legitimate, well, that seems to be a great shame. Thank you.
It's a great shame, Councillor Deere, but I think we have to acknowledge that we are between a rock and a hard place, and we have to come to a decision on this application now. Anyway, Councillor Hess, I want to speak. You're muted. Muted.
Yep, okay. Thank you, Chair. I think right at the outset of this discussion, Councillor Rubini summed it up perfectly well. And then that was followed by Councillor Deere's proposal, which I think was very interesting and a bit of good out of the box thinking, which the officers don't think we can do, which is rather a shame. So really, we're being asked to underwrite the developer's profitability by sacrificing affordable housing because they forgot the cost in drains. It's ridiculous and it's wrong. And quite frankly, if they're an experienced developer, the drains will be one of the first things they thought about. So it all doesn't add up to me. So I can't support this at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, I mean, a lot of people want to speak again. I'll let Councillor Coburn come back because you're second time, because lots of other people have second times.
Thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, I agree with the officer. It's a shame we didn't have more history, because those of us that have lived with the history of the A3 being built, the change in situation of these sites, what East Hampshire's done along there, and how, as Councillor Isherwood has already said, you know, we've looked at possibilities on this site. You know, there's a sort of logical sequence, if you like, to have got where we've got to. And I know it's difficult without that full history to understand why it would be unreasonable to do certain things which sound incredibly reasonable. And I think the lesson to be learnt from this is, even if we're not given the report, the full history in the report, perhaps we should put some time in to going back over the history of certain sites, because, you know, we are judged by our total behaviour and our reasonable behaviour over all the decisions we make on a single site. And I think we have to be very, very careful to take that into consideration when we're looking at the action and the decisions we're going to make. I don't blame the officer for one moment. The history is long, and, you know, this is an amendment to Section 73 rather than a full application. But, you know, we are, if we're not careful, going to open up a can of worms and find ourselves being considered very unreasonable because of our previous decisions on this site. So, you know, I do think we should be guided very much by the officers here and the evidence that's in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cullen, for a very constructive comment. I regret it as much as everybody else, but I think we have to come to a decision. There are 3 hands, but there was one before. Do you want to speak again, Councillor Hunt, or not?
I agree with Councillor Deere, quite frankly, and I don't, regardless of, you know, whether there's of the independent assessments, I just think that at the first opportunity we roll over with the affordable housing and let the, you know, developer continue as is. And I'd just like to understand what is there to stop us from asking them to go back and say, I'm sorry, but, you know, 30% affordable housing is what we have to have, and you need to take a look at it again. Why can someone explain to me why we can't defer this and send them off to take another look at it? Why does it have to be decided this evening? Because we do it with plenty of other applications that get deferred for various reasons. So, you know, if someone can give me a single definite reason as to why we absolutely have to make a decision tonight, then fine. But if not, would it not make sense to push back politely and ask them to come up with an alternative solution?
Well, I hear what you say, Councillor Hunt, but you know, it's slightly different from the other deferments in the sense that this has got a long track record on this.
So what? So what?
So what? What?
Yeah. So what? I don't mean to be facetious, but so what if it's got a long track record? You know, why? I don't understand what significance that really has as to why, you know, we can't take the opportunity to push it back if the affordable housing is so important to everybody.
Yeah, fair point. And it comes to being consent, and then I think we have to move to the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. As everybody's saying, we're between a rock and a hard place. I can understand that. However, it seems to me that among the councillors here, if we take a vote, we may well have to vote on refusing it simply because of this lack of affordable. And as has been explained to us, if we do that, there's a good chance an appeal and costs will be awarding against us. So I don't want to do that. That does leave us the only opportunity is to defer it so that we can go back to the developers, we can consider the history, and then bring it back again in the hope that this time there will be. Maybe they could produce a plan with slightly less affordable housing, but it does give us that opportunity. I want to refuse it, but I am concerned I don't want those costs against us. So please, can we defer it and then bring it back? Perhaps Ruth could have a chat to the developers, bring back the history, and then we could all look properly again as to find out how we can get around this situation, because it can't continue. Thank you.
Right. Can I have Councillor? I've got Councillor Murray's, but I see Barry Devlin put his hand up. Do you want to speak, Barry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Deere and Councillor Beanie and Councillor Hunt. It is our duty, really, to do what we can by this. We shouldn't be simply constrained by, oh, this has been going on for far too long, it's got to happen. If we have the opportunity, and we have Councillor Deere who knows all about this sort of thing, to help us with this, then we should do that. We all talk about how important social housing is. And if we can defer it, and it is reasonable, and we can politely go and say, look, could you not look at this? Surely that would be a reasonable thing to do. I can't understand, if we're looking back at the history, they were going to put 44 houses there. Where would their sewage have gone then? I just, you know, it doesn't ring true to me. And I think we should stand up and we should try to do something about this in a reasonable, rational way. And hopefully, you know, everything, it may or may not work out, but I think it's our duty to do that. Thank you.
Mrs. Devon, do you want to speak? You're muted.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to back up what my planning colleagues have said and some members, this is not an opportunity to rewrite the planning permission. The Section 73 procedure only enables you to decide whether or not that condition can be varied. I'm afraid your scope for a deferral to work up a better package is not open to you, I'm afraid. It's simply a matter to decide upon the whether or not the condition should be either accepted to be deleted or otherwise the permission stands as it's currently drawn, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Chris Francis, did you want to add? I know you were on, or you were just going to say what Mr. Devon just said?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I was largely going to say what Mr. Devon has just said, that I don't think the option is really there to explore an alternative on the scheme, and yeah, there is real weight attached to the fact it's been independently reviewed. So yeah, that was all. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, well, everyone's had a chance to speak. I think we have to move to the recommendation now, quite frankly. And the recommendation is subject to conditions 1 to 22, and I think there's a 23 there as well, because Ruth mentioned it. And in 1 to 17, permission be granted. Can we vote on that, please? Where's Georgina?
Councillor Keane against.
Chairman, I'm afraid you have a casting vote because we have a 5-5-3.
Do we really? Well, I voted for it, so I'm afraid my casting vote is for the application. Thank you very much. Right, there being no other items for discussion under exempt session, then that's the end of tonight's meeting. And the next meeting is on Monday, not Tuesday, Monday the 26th at the usual time, 6 o'clock, the following day being a full council meeting. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.
Night, David.
Good night.